Hello and good morning to our today's webinar, SERVIEW Premium webinar to the topic Design Thinking and ITIL 4. I'm warmly welcome you here. My name is Markus Bauser. I'm Managing Director of SERVIEW and responsible for all of our operational business. Today we have the topic Design Thinking for ITIL 4. It's a very hot topic because ITIL recommends ITIL 4 Design Thinking now to use it for improvement and, for example, design of practices and processes. But it's a little bit a secret in the books how it really works. So it's more a recommendation to use it, and that is a gap what we want to close a little bit today. And so I have a specialist on my side today, my colleague Tamara Petrita-Seifert. She is the lead for the topic Design Thinking for SERVIEW, and she is really specialist and will help us to get an understanding how this could work. Hello, Tamara, can you hear me?
Yeah, great. Good morning, Marcus. Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Perfect.
Thank you that you are here. You are today in Colombia. So it's very cool. It's very early in the morning right now, but it seems that you are really wake up. Huh?
I'm glad it looks like this. I'm kidding, but yeah, it's quite early. We have now 5 a.m. and I'm in Colombia, South America, and I'm super happy to be here and be with you so that we can talk about such an interesting topic as is design thinking for ITIL. So yeah, thank you that you invited me for this.
Yeah, great. Some housekeeping rules around this webinar. We will take round about, let me say, more or less 45 minutes. It depends a little bit how many questions comes in. And questions are a good topic. If you have any questions in the webinar, feel free to use the chat tool, the question tool of the control panel. Write it in. I will take a look for the questions, and we will try to answer all the questions inside these webinars. So feel free to use it. The documentation or the slides we see here are already available for you in the part documents, so you can download it. But if someone is going fail, if you cannot download it really, then write it down in the question channel that you need the documents per email. Then of course we send it to you afterwards per email. So otherwise, only I have to say this webinar is recorded, and we will put it in our YouTube channel today in the afternoon. So if you think it's very cool and you have to show it to your friends and colleagues, then you can find it in our YouTube channel later. So that's all the administrative housekeeping stuff what we need. So I think we can switch now, Tamara, to you. It's not your turn. I wish everybody a lot of new insights and a lot of fun with your presentation, and let's start.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Marcus. All right, so let's go into this topic. Let's dig in and look what we have for today. Okay, so first, a few words about who is going to speak to you in the next 45 minutes. My name is Tamara Petrita-Seifert, just as Marcus stated before, and I work for SERVIEW in the fields of agility. Those are topics like Scrum, Kanban, SAFe, which stands for Scaled Agile Framework, and the lead trainer for design thinking. Now, just a quick overview. What do we have for today? So first, we already have some presentation and the housekeeping and the welcome to the webinar. Now we're going to talk about how do we go from theory to practice. This is what we want to answer today. How can we use design thinking to move from what ITIL 4 shows us in the books and in the theory and really apply it to our business or to our company? And well, we will see then design thinking as a possibility. We will explore what is design thinking really as an overview, and then connect it to ITIL 4, right? Then we're going to find like touch points that we can really use to implement design thinking in ITIL 4. And at the end of the webinar, I have some examples prepared for you so you can really visualize what we would do in a workshop, because we have this workshop that lasts 1 day and is really hands-on, really to go through this process of implementing ITIL 4 with design thinking. So I'm going to show you some examples and we can talk about it. And by the end of the webinar, we have the summary and questions. But please don't hesitate to send questions. Marcus will be checking regularly. And if there's a question that really fits a certain topic in that moment, Marcus can talk in and ask me directly. So please don't forget and don't hesitate to send some questions as you have them. Okay, so first, theory, right? We know many different types of models because we're going to focus now on ITIL 4, but we also know different types of methods, models, and theories that tell us how we should work. What do we need to do? What should we stop doing so that something works? And it shows us in a really clear and rational way how it should work. But then when we learn this type of methods, and then we, for example, there is an option of Prince 2, which is a project management method, or Prince to Agile, which connects it more with the Agile side, or we have ITIL 4, or we have just so many other frameworks, like for example Scrum, or like for example SAFe, right? So how do we, when we go to a training, for example, or when we have a consultant and they explain us how everything works, and then we go back to our office and then we sit there and then we're asking ourselves, okay, where do I start? Like, what should I do first? And how do I connect theory to my reality, right? Because every company is different. So this is like the hard part of the really the challenge of it. And this is when design thinking becomes an option, an interesting option for this, right? This is more the question about, right, moving from theory to practice. How do we do this? This big leap. Maybe you have had some situation like this before, right? That you learn something, maybe you hear something interesting, and then the challenge is to connect it to your context. Okay, so design thinking is a possibility. Let me explain you first what design thinking is, really, if you're really new to design thinking. And even if you know design thinking, I just want to show you design thinking from a different perspective so that you see it as a possibility. Right, so we have that just this key points to define design thinking. More than a process, as it is often named, it's a mindset, it's a culture, right? Design thinking, of course, we have a process, or as we are going to talk more about this later, some spaces that guide the type of things we do at a certain moment, but it is mostly a mindset and a culture because it evolves in a way of thinking, evolves in a way of looking at things. It becomes more a way of solving problems. So when you start working with design thinking, you stop looking at problems really like a burden, like something negative. You start looking at them like questions, like, how do I solve this? What is a solution for this? So this is a mindset shift. And if you have it in a team, if you have it in an organization, it becomes a culture, right? Because then you have in your team many people that start thinking or looking at problems more like opportunities to change, questions to answer, more than looking at them as a negative problem, as we know it, like in a very classic way, or in our daily basis. Okay, design thinking, the mindset of design thinking is putting people at the center, right? So it's human-centered. For example, that it comes from human-centered design, right? That is like where it comes from. And what we want to do is look at the products we develop, or the services that we offer, or the solutions that we're looking for, from the perspective of the person in the center. That means we are just really focusing on how can I bring value to this person that's in the center, and then we migrate to products, services, and so on. But we're going to talk about this in a moment, and it will become more clear when we visualize it. It's about visualization. This is connected directly to communication. because design thinking focuses a lot on just not talking problems over or discussing, but visualizing it, putting things in a clear and simple, very simple way, so that we have a common understanding. So it focuses really on visualization. So because many times when we explain something, everybody understands something different. I don't know, maybe you have lived something like this before, had this experience. Maybe you explain something, and then when you ask back, what did you understand? Everybody understands something different. Communication is really complex. Everybody looks at the world from their own perspective, from their own context, so that everybody gets something different from the message. When you visualize things might become more clear, right? It's not an assurance that it will happen like this, but it really helps for communication and simplicity. You cannot draw something that is really complex. You cannot draw it really fast, but if it's something clear, you can draw it in a simple way. There is understanding behind it. So it's a really, really strong focus on visualization. It's a discovery process. That's why I put this nice little boat here as an image so that we visualize it. Discovery process, yeah, it maybe sounds nice, but it's more, you need to be prepared to discover. You need to be prepared for adventure. If you're not prepared for adventure, you're going to miss a lot, right? For example, imagine, right, we want to, when we work with design thinking, first we departure with an open mindset. That means we have an idea of what the problem is, but we're open to redefine it. Because often we say, this is the problem and this is what we need to do, right? We're really closed and focused because that's really efficient. Sometimes, right? But not in design thinking. In design thinking, you want to really go like in a discovery mindset, really adventure and discovery process. So you look at the problem and then you ask yourself, is this really the problem? Or maybe is there a possibility that it could be something different? And then you go and search for different options. And then you start, I'm going to show you in a moment, you start to say, okay, what could be, what maybe it's not. And then you focus on something that is more real now, but you took the chance to go broad on different options before you define the problem. The same as with the solution. But you need to be prepared for this, because imagine, for example, let's visualize it with a story. Imagine you are, well, in Spanish it's called Christopher Columbus. And imagine you would just depart Spain looking for a faster way to go to India. And you pack your boat and you're ready to go, and then you go on this road, and then you arrive somewhere completely different, which is America. And imagine this guy would have been in the boat and say like, oh no, this is not where I wanted to arrive. I'll just turn back and go. Well, he would have missed a pretty interesting opportunity and we wouldn't be here, for example, right? So you need to be prepared and open for discovery, for adventure, to find things out that you were not thinking before. And this is really just not something that happens immediately. You need to be ready for this. You need to be open for this. Ideation, right? I just talked about it a little bit before. It's about, searching for ideas, searching for different perspectives, combining maybe crazy things so that your creativity gets this impulse and you can find different ideas. You can think out of the box. You can focus on things that you didn't see before. It's about creating value. That's the focus of us all. I mean, we want to bring value to other people's lives. We want to solve problems. We want to provide a service that makes a person happy, and that is creating value. And this is a really big focus of design thinking. What is really the value of that we're creating? And finally, it's about understanding. Maybe you've heard it already between the lines. It's understanding is everything what I just mentioned. Is I really want to understand what the problem is, so I can really search for different solutions and give you the one that brings you more value. But before I can deliver anything, I really need to understand the context, the person, the user, the customer. they might be different persons. I need to understand the technology. I need to understand the problem, right? So design thinking focuses very, very much on understanding, really, so that we can really deliver the value that we want to deliver. So this is just like the definition, so that you have an idea of what the mindset from design thinking really is, and that it's not just a method and a process, but it's really a mindset and a culture. Here, it's more for this slide here. We talked now about what is the mindset. I'm going to focus on what is this process, right? Because we want to understand what is design thinking before we can know how it fits for ITIL 4 or any other method that we're going to use. So when we have this mindset, we can complement it with this process. Now, the one doesn't leave the other one like out. It's not that you need to have first the one and then the other one. The good thing about this is that the more you do the process, the more you get the mindset, and then the more you get the mindset, the better gets the process. So it's just a great way to work, and it just gets better and better with time. It's a learning process, right? Like everything, it's a learning process. Here is the process of design thinking. More than a process, as I told you before, it's not really a process. It's ITIL calls it more like spaces, right? So I'm going to show you the next. I'm going to go back here. I wanted to show you this slide over here because this is the process, right? But now it is put in a way that you can see it as spaces. So imagine you are in this room, right, in the middle of this circle, let's say, and you're standing here and you have a question in your head or in your head, and you need to look for an answer, and then you ask yourself, okay, I'm looking for this type of answer, so I need to open this door. So you get into this space or into this piece of the process, step of the process, to find this answer. And then you find the answer and you come out, close the door, and then you need to look for something else, and then you open another door. But you don't need to have this very strict process that follows process A, B, C, D, and so on. So I'm going to go back so that you see it in a logical way. This is the logical order of the process. And we can organize this process steps into 3 groups or topics. The first one is empathy. Empathy means connect with the other, right? If I have to put it really very simple, it's connecting with the other. That means I need to understand the other person, and not just the person, but I need to understand the context. And I need to, in order to understand the context and the person, I need to connect with the other one. I need to be able to change my perspective and move to the other one's perspective, because we're so used to looking at the world from our view and just being in our context and our perspective. So with empathy, we want to get away from home, let's say, and move to the other one's reality. What is the reality of the other person? We do this in order to define, right? We need to define, first we need to understand, and then we define, okay, now I know what the problem really is. And now I can search for different solutions and define what solution brings the most value, or which are possibilities of solutions. And then we move to the next, let's say, stage, which is prototyping or prototype. And this is where we see what is going to work and what isn't. So when we define maybe different ideas, different options or solutions, we move to prototyping, and then we say, okay, how is this solution going to look like? How is it going to feel like? So we do prototypes. So a prototype can be just something very simple, like a sketch on a napkin, or it can be really something that is already built, but you want to, let's say, make prototypes that are very simple so that you can just get some feedback from your user and understand, again, if this is really what this person is, or what is the person thinking about this solution, right? So this is the process of design thinking. Of course, I'm not getting into the very, very small details of what is in each space, but you can understand it in these 3 groups of process steps, which are empathy, connect with the other one, understand the other one's context, define really what the problem is and what are different possible solutions, and then prototype. show me how it's going to look like. Is this going to be possible? And of course, these process steps that are within these groups iterate. So as I said before, you are continually learning, getting feedback, learning again before you have really something that you say, okay, this is a solution I want to have, and move forward with this. Finally, about design thinking, before we connect it with ITIL 4, is, let's say, some rules, right? Some rules of the game. The first one is on the left bottom side, diverge and converge. What you see here, this is the rhythm that you have in design thinking. This is like the really the way you breathe, let's say. Before, I told you about this when I was talking about the design thinking mindset, and as you before you define something, you get really like broad. You go really broad on options, so you don't focus on something right at the beginning, but you look at the problem and you say, is this the problem? You go really broad, and then you converge and say, okay, from all these different options, with what do I feel comfortable? What do I think is the right definition of the problem? And of course, we have a process within it, and it's continuous that you go divergent and convergent, because you're always looking for different perspectives, solutions, definitions, and then you converge and define, right? You get it all through the process of design thinking. And you want to arrive in a solution that is right here in the middle of these three circles. In the middle of these three blue circles is a green area, and this is where you want to arrive with your solution at the end of let's say the design thinking process, or all the time you want to check that you are in there, because these are the rules of design thinking. It's the solution that you're going to build needs to have a market. It needs to be desirable. Somebody needs to want it, right? Because if you build something awesome and nobody wants it, well, it's not going to bring any value to anybody, right? So it needs to have a market. It needs to be desirable. This is the let's say the circle of desirability. Then you have feasibility. Is it possible to make it, right? Do we have the technology? Do we have the resources to make it? Because of course, if you have a great idea and you know a lot of people want it, but you don't have the technology to deliver it, well, it's not going to bring any value either, because you will not be able to deliver this. For example, if you have, let's say, this this scooters, like the electro scooters, but you say, you know what, I want electro scooters that fly. That would be amazing. I mean, I would be your customer already. That's great. But is it really possible right now? Maybe it's possible, but maybe the cost is so high that makes it impossible. We don't have the resources for it. So we need to rethink, okay, before we get to that solution, what can we deliver? Or how can we deliver the same value with a different solution? And finally, we have the viability. Does it have a business model? And that means, can it sustain itself in time? We're talking about here from a type of sustainability. When a solution is in the center of these three circles, we can say it is sustainable because it can last in time. That's a definition in this context. And with a business model, we say, do we have income, or like people are going to pay for it more than what it costs, right? So that we can continue delivering this in time, because if we can only do it once, it's not going to bring value very long, right? It's just going to be one shot thing. So these are the rules from design thinking. And of course, if you have any questions, just send it to Marcus and we will answer them. I'm going to continue here because now we want to get into how to connect design thinking with ITIL 4. How do we do this? Okay. So as you can see here, we have the design thinking process, all the steps that I showed you before. But now we're going to connect it with the CI model. This is continuous improvement model. And this model gives us some questions in order to have a continuous improvement. And we use it in ITIL 4. And it just fits perfectly to the way of thinking of each of the stages of the design thinking process. And that gives us a guide in order to really connect design thinking with whatever process we want to change or we want to implement for ITIL 4. Exactly. So we start with what is the vision? Where are we now that we connected with the empathy part of it? Then where do we want to be and how do we get there? We can really connect it to the definition part of the design thinking process. And finally, we have taking action and did we get there? And that would be like prototyping. Finally, we can connect all of them with how do we keep the momentum going. I'm going to show you some examples of how to do it, because well, of course we need some time to really get into detail with this. And this is exactly the value you get when you do the workshop, because we go really hands-on and we do all the process in order to answer these questions through the design thinking process. Okay, so how can we design the best onboarding? We have a use case, and that would be onboarding, right? I'm guessing everybody has had an onboarding experience before. Some have been great, and some have not. And we use this use case also in the workshop to explore the connection between design thinking and ITIL. So the first thing you need to recognize here is that we need to switch our focus, right? So I'm going to click here so we have all the information in one slide. And it's usually we think the process through. Really, we put a lot of work and energy in defining a process that is efficient, that is cost efficient, that delivers what the person needs at the end of the process. But we focus a lot, very, very strong into the organization perspective. That means the resources that we have, the process that we need to follow in order to be efficient and deliver that what we want. That is usually the way we think. I would be very curious to hear from you. Is that's the case, or if you have maybe just a different approach? What design thinking tells us is, hey, switch your focus. Focus on the person, right? Customer-centered, human-centered. So now we need to think the same process, but focusing on how to deliver value and quality to the person. And then we go back and then we look at how do we need to design the process then, right? So it's a total switch. You see, in one, we go, it's a change in direction. The outcome at the end, you have a process that's efficient and it delivers something that the person needs. But the way you build the process and the way you focus on it changes completely, and therefore brings more value, because you focus on delivering value and quality, and then you say, what would make this person happy, right? What would be great for an onboarded person? What does she need when she starts working in this company? Okay, so she needs this A, B, C, D, and whatever. Okay, right. So how do we build the process so that it is cost efficient and everything, but really focuses on delivering exactly that, what the person needs? And that's how we build a customer journey. This is already a tool for design thinking, that you look at the process not as a process, but as a journey. What is the journey of the customer? And where are these touch points where we cannot fail? That means, where does our organizational process and the customer journey, where do they find themselves? Where are these touch points? So we know where are we in contact with the user, and we cannot fail there, because it's a point where we can deliver value, right? That's the mindset of it, the thinking of it. Of course, I already put here, also put on here on the right on this sticky note, keep your balance in mind. It's not black or white. It's not like on one extreme or the other. It's, you know, it's always about balance, but it just helps you to focus on the same thing, on the same process, just in a different way, give it a different perspective. Okay, for this, we can use another tool from design thinking, which is persona. Maybe you have seen the persona before, and it's very simple, but simple doesn't mean easy. It's very, very simple. We just want to focus on the user that we want to deliver. In this case, in onboarding, we want to focus on the user. Who do we want to deliver value to? And here we describe this person. Now, this is a, let's say, imaginary person, but based on what we know from our focus group. Because usually in marketing, I'm going to click here so you see the information. Usually in marketing, we focus on a group, right? So for example, let's say men between 35 and 40 that are single and live in Georgia, United States, for example, right? That is a very broad group. We don't have an image of a person. And because we want to focus always on the person, right? Customer in delivering value, we want to define this group as a person. So in this case, it would be Marie Smith, right? And she is 29 years old. She's single. She lives in Germany. She speaks 3 languages: German, Spanish, and English. What is her education? What is her role? What is her experience? Daily activities, and so on. All of this, the information you can see here. We do it so that we understand her context. And we always make our decisions based on the person we're delivering to. Even if this is an imaginary person, it represents that group and we can have a connection with a person. It's more difficult to have a connection with a set of data points. It's easier to have a connection with a person. So that's why we define it. And why we define it, we learn so much more from who is the user or who is the customer. Now, another tool that we use also in the workshop, of course, and in design thinking in general, is this value proposition canvas. It's one of my absolute favorite tools. And if you have the opportunity, just try using it, because here you can connect your user, which is on the right side of this canvas, and your product or service, which is on the left side of this canvas. So you first define what are the customer jobs. What does this person need to do? And based on those customer jobs, you define what are the gains and the pains. So the pains are these ones here. For example, a pain in onboarding process for this user would be the computer has to restart during doing a training or during work, or for example, if here my computer would just say, hey, I need to do a restart, well, that would be like a pain for me in this moment. And you define what are the gains, right? Of course, you go back and forth, but focus on here on the green cards now, on the sticky notes. What are the gains of doing those jobs? And then you define it, and then you migrate to the left side. So first you focus on the customer and on the user, that's on the right side, and then you move to the left. Usually we do it the opposite way. First, we define what is our product, and then we say, who can we sell it to? Well, design thinking tells you, do it the opposite way. Focus first on who's your customer, who's your user, and then focus on your product. How can you deliver value? Right? It's a complete mindset shift. So you define the gains, and then you move to the product side, where you define this, the left side of this canvas, where you define the products and services you have. So you say, okay, we have these products and services, and how can these products and services be a pain reliever and a gain creator? So pain relievers, this is what the value that they would deliver. And what are the gain creators? These are the gains that you would get from using this product when you see it from the customer or the user perspective. So you use this canvas to really connect these two worlds, because it's very different. User from product is just very different. How can you connect them in order for you to understand what is really the value that you deliver? Okay, a different example here. Maybe, let me see. If I'm going too fast, don't worry, you can ask and I will go back. Okay, so for example, when you define an onboarding process, you can start by something like this. You define a list of, okay, what is in the onboarding? What does this person need? And you make a list, and then you define in what are you going to focus, right? So if you look at it from an IT perspective, because of course we're working with ITIL 4 and we have a strong IT perspective, then you would say, okay, what can we do from the IT side of it? But as I said before, you can use design thinking for anything, any process or any method. And if you want to implement something within your company or organization, you can use this process to do it. So you define it, and you can visualize, how does this process look like? like who is involved and what does everybody need to do. But of course, you first focus on what is the value, what is really what this person, this user needs. For example, in Marie, in the example before, she needs to have everything on time at one day so that she can start working right away. Okay, so in order to have everything ready on one time, what do we need to do before that? So here you define the process, and you always keep in mind the journey map. What is Marie going to perceive? And another tool that I brought for sharing with you here is a business model canvas. Maybe you know it, maybe you don't. If you don't, I would definitely recommend to you to look into this model. This is just a great canvas to have an understanding of your whole business model. It's putting on one page your whole business model, and you define your value proposition, you define your customer segment, you define what is the relationship with your customer and what are the channels, how do you deliver that value proposition to your customers. Then you also define, okay, in order to deliver that value proposition, what do we need to do, what are the key activities, key resources, and what key partners do we have in order to make that real. And finally, you have the cost structure and revenue stream. So in one page you can really visualize the whole business model. In this context, we use it to understand the impact of such a simple process, let's say, because that's the thing. We look at processes that are so, let's say, normal, as given, as obvious, but nothing is obvious. And we forget to evaluate what is the impact that this process has if we don't do it right. And this is what we have here as an example is, okay, if that onboarding process doesn't go well, where do we have problems in our business model? Or if it does go well, where do we gain within our business model? So this is a way of evaluating, okay, did we get there, or how do we keep the momentum going? Like, how are we aware of the impact that this process has in our business model, right? Okay, I'm going now to put well, first show you a little bit of German here with the summary. Zusammenfassung is summary. So I hope you learned that. If you take one thing today, that would be it. And the summary for design thinking and connecting with ITIL 4 would be, well, the world is constantly changing. Our processes are constantly changing. Well, we need to adapt. Now we learn it with of course, I'm guessing all of you are aware of the corona pandemic. And now finally, I hope that finally everybody, the whole world, learn that we need to adapt. Nothing is just set in stone, and we need to adapt to what the context is doing. And we don't have, let's say, absolute control on what is happening, but that's okay. That's totally okay. It's like life. So what we need to learn is how to get along with it. And from what I see in my daily life is that really design thinking is a great way of learning how to do that. So like I was telling Marcus the other day, I like to put it in a visual story, that I feel that design thinking is like a surfboard. You know, the world is very crazy. It changes a lot. It's not predictable. Yeah, and it's like being in the ocean with these huge waves. But if you're swimming in the ocean with these huge waves, you might just get drowned by them, because you cannot breathe, or when you're going to breathe, the wave comes, and it's very scary. But what if you would have a surfboard, and you would know how to surf? Now you would look at the ocean just differently. You would just have so much fun by surfing on this crazy ocean. You would not see it as a crazy, dangerous ocean. It is still the same ocean, but now you have a surfboard, and you can enjoy these changes. You can use the change to have fun, right? If you put it that way. So design thinking is your surfboard. Use it to navigate this changing world, changing context. Focus on delivering value, right? That's what we all want, deliver value. That's how our society grows. By everybody delivering value, we all live better, and we are more creative. We can have more profitable companies. We can have just a better life. in summary, we are about solving problems, which is connecting also to delivering value, and look at problems from a different perspective. We talked about this, that problems are what they are. It's just an open question. How are we going to solve it? And react without losing control. This is coming from the whole agile world. Being agile doesn't mean working in a very dynamic and chaotic way. No, it means that you're able to react and deliver even in changing environments and adapting all the time, but without losing control. It's like playing soccer. And so you're playing soccer and you have the ball in your feet and you have a plan and you know, okay, if I kick the ball, I just make a score. But then your plan is perfect, everything is calculated, you're running towards the goal. But then another team player comes from the opposite team and wants to take the ball, and you need to react. In order not to lose the ball, you need to react. But you need to react without losing the ball. That means without falling or without losing the ball. And that is agile. That is to be agile. You react, you still have the ball in your feet, and you can change perspective. You can maybe play or you play with a different team player and you scored the goal, which is at the end what you want to achieve, the goal. It's about exploration, and it's a discovery and adventure process. You need to be prepared and open to discover things that you maybe didn't think before. So it's not a given. You need to be open to find things that you wouldn't expect. And that hangs together with being open and change your paradigms, right? We're very fixed sometimes with certain paradigms. Well, with design thinking, you need to, or you learn how to change those paradigms to see the world or to see the problem, your process, your company, organization from a different perspective, so that you can implement whatever thing you learned from ITIL 4 or from different methods that you have. Okay, finally, of course, you are more than welcome to join us in our Design Thinking for ITIL 4 one-day workshop, where we are going to go through a case, and ITIL 4 case, and we're going to look how to implement it in our organization using design thinking. So it's one very intense day, a workshop that we can do it online. So it doesn't matter where you are right now, where in the world you are, we can do this and learn from each other's experience. It's a very hands-on and interactive workshop. Of course, you're more than welcome to join. Marcus will give you some information about this. Okay, so Marcus, are you there? I would love to hear the questions that we have. And yeah.
So yes, I'm here. Thank you very much for your presentation. And I have to say I like your surfboard picture very much, because this is a very positive picture, and especially in the times we have right now. And it shows that these times can give us also hope and courage and fun if we have the correct surfboards under us. So yeah, thank you very much for that. I like it very, very much. I have some questions here.
Yep.
One question is, you talk about the culture and willingness to experiment. How can I convince my boss to get involved? He is a classical project manager.
That's a great question. That's a great question. If you have in your mind different answers, please share it also as well, because there's no one way of doing it, right? There's just many ways. But yeah, that's like daily life, you know, when you bring, let's say, the agile perspective into the classical business world, that first the boss is like, well, I don't think it's going to work. No, because we all have always done it like this and it has always worked. So why should we change and so on? So it's difficult. But if you can just not convince, you cannot convince anybody. I don't think so. You can, the person needs to convince itself. So you can just show or open a window of possibility, right? Where you can try it out, where you can show your team, your boss in your company, okay, let's do just an experiment, or let me show you how this company did it and why it worked, or why it didn't. So it's very important to bring your boss on board so that agility or design thinking can work. But yeah, so don't try to convince anybody. Look for an opportunity to implement it and be open for feedback or discussing, okay, what are we really experiencing? Is it really that bad? Is it not working? Or did it bring value, and do we see a change? Looking at examples from other companies is just a really good way of showing that if it has worked for others, why wouldn't it work for us? So that would be my advice. And yeah, definitely. I mean, there are so many great companies that are working with design thinking and have just, you know, changed the rules of the game. Just some examples for you that you can take directly to your boss. The Kindle from Amazon was developed using design thinking, right? Just a small example. Another small example, the iPhone, same, was developed using design thinking. So design thinking is also there for, let's say, not innovative geniuses to make innovative genius solutions. So yeah, good luck for that. And of course, if you need more support with this, you can write me anytime or contact us. We can help you with this.
Okay. The other, perhaps something to add to that point, you have shown us the slide with the you call it the rules of the game, no? That the results of the design thinking process have to transport or have to produce something what must be useful. And I think that's very important to show something like this to such kind of managers, that design thinking is not hobby by work or something for crazy people. So that it's that's what exactly the slide what I mean, because that's for more people who say, well, what's in for me? What's the result? We do not know what the result is, but we assure that that we can use it afterwards. So that's perhaps another point. Then I have a question. You recommend the business model canvas.
Yeah.
Is there more information about it in ITIL 4? I don't know if you know it. I know it. It's more information in the DITS, or the Digital and IT Strategy publication. There they use it, and I know that in the DITS course, there's an in practical assignment where you have to use the canvas. So if someone looks more in that direction, you find it in that in the last news publications with the how to adopt the digital strategy. Yeah. So I've answered the question. Sorry.
Yeah, it's so fine. Just can I add something to this?
Yeah, of course, of course.
If
You are the specialist. Yeah.
No, Marcus, please. I'm always learning. But I can really recommend to you to look into strategizer.com. In strategizer.com, they developed the business model canvas, and yeah, you can find the canvas there, and you can find a small video that explains as well how it works. Or you can visit us in a design thinking course or in our workshop. There we will go very deep into this. Yeah.
Okay, then I have the last questions. Thank you to add that. I have the last question. The usage of design thinking seems to be more a mindset and perspective change than a new method. Is it correct?
It depends on how you see it, but no, I would say it's both. It's definitely both. The thing is, the mindset, it's really about being open, right? It's about looking at things from a different perspective. It's about being ready to make mistakes or to be wrong, right? That's not that easy, and that mindset allows us to follow that process. On the other side, following that process teaches us that mindset. So it's really something that it just gets into the other one, right? So both, it's both. It's definitely both.
I like the idea very much. I'm doing ITIL projects since 25 years now, and it's very often in the past in the real world that the compliance to the book knowledge is very important. So they look for what is in the book, and if my design process looks like or more or less than what's written in the books, then it's a good process. But it's not true in the real world, because book knowledge is not a quality issue. But here you are forced to get more the customer perspective in it, what the outcome and so on. And that's exactly, I think, what's the major switches between ITIL v3 and ITIL 4 to get this much more in focus. And the usage of methods like design thinking forces us to try it out. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Great. That was all questions I have here. To everybody in this session, if you like to discuss furthermore, please feel free. Do not hesitate to contact us. You will find, or you find Tamara in all the social medias like LinkedIn or Xing or every channel you like to have. We have the email address here. So if you have any further questions, feel free to contact us directly. And so at the end, Tamara, thank you very much for your presentation. And it's always a pleasure to hear what you are saying and to see the way how you transport it and with all the passion. It's really fun. Thank you very much. And to all others, thank you that you join us today. Stay tuned. We will have more English webinars in the future because we get more and more international customers. So we will have in a regular basis English webinars. So stay tuned. And what's the most important thing is right now, take care of yourself and stay healthy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marcus.
Goodbye, Tamara.
See you. Goodbye. Stay warm. See you next time. Goodbye.